And welcome once again to the NoteSpire Radio Artist Insight Series, where we like to chat with Christian artists and give you, the listener, a unique insight into their lives, their music, and their ministries. And this time, we have the pleasure and honor of talking to Katy Dahl from Minneapolis, or the general area of Minneapolis, Minnesota, we're calling it because we're talking in February. Oh, Katy, it's an honor to have you. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. So tell us about, we were just talking off the mic about the weather, a little snowy, a little cold there.
Yeah, there's a little bit of snow, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But to be expected, I guess, in Minnesota.
That's right. That's right. We're enjoying like a sunny, mostly sunny day here in southern Pennsylvania. We had a couple inches of snow the other day, but I'll tell you what, Katy, one day in Pennsylvania here, and I'm from upstate New York. I've only been in Pennsylvania a few years, but in Pennsylvania, they have all these roads and stuff, and they get an inch or two, and it's like, oh, no. And, it's like, oh, close everything. Everybody just, don't forget your bread and milk, and because we're going to be snowed in for a week. That never happens, but because the next day, the snow is gone. But I don't know. They just, but where you are and where I'm from in upstate New York, they know how to take care of snow, don't they?
Yeah, we've definitely got a different system for it. Yeah. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, just move it aside a little bit and keep going, right?
Yep, pretty much.
or just drive on it. Yeah. Yep. Why do we need to plow? It's here over here. Anyway, all right, we digress. Katy, we're here to talk about your music and not just all the snow. So you've got a couple of CDs out, and the last one, the most recent, and I did not write that down, although we've got a few songs from it. What is the title of the second CD that you've done?
Yeah, the most recent project is called Faithful.
Yes, Faithful. That's right. Okay, there we go. I did go to your website, and I just didn't write everything down. Okay, so you are of course, I meant to say this earlier, you're a Christian singer and songwriter, and but first you were and are still a worship leader. Mm-hmm. So you're actively doing that at this point?
Yeah, I'm currently on staff at Grace Church in Eden Prairie as an associate worship leader, and that's really how I started in music. For the last, 10 or 12 years, if you go back to my high school days, is kind of when I started just leading a congregation in worship. And back when I was in about 10th grade, I knew that was the call on my life. And that was something that I just knew God made me to do. And so I just kept stepping through the doors that he opened for me to do that. And that just was, that thing that you just feel like, yes, this is what I'm here for.
Right.
That was just so natural for me to step into that. And so that was really kind of where it all started from.
Yeah. So you've been playing music. I mean, I'm going to guess that your main instrument is guitar?
It is, yes.
Yeah. Okay. You play anything else, or is that it?
No, I dabble with other things, but I primarily lead from the acoustic.
Right. And so many worship leaders, people do lead with guitar, don't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it kind of seems to help to have a rhythm instrument, I think.
That's right.
For me. But I just fell in love with the sound of the acoustic guitar. It just sounds so great. And I don't know, it made me want to pick it up because of the way it sounded. Uh-huh. And it inspired me to keep playing because, I don't know, I loved it.
I started on guitar as well. But with guitar, when you're leading it, you can be up there. You're standing. You're in front of the people. You're facing them, and it's just I know some people lead from the piano or keyboard, and I have done that. And when I've led worship, it's always been with a keyboard. But there's something about leading with the guitar. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you went from that, and you're still doing that, but then you decided, when did you decide to start writing songs?
Yeah, kind of throughout like high school and my early college days, I just dabbled with writing in my bedroom, but I never shared those songs really with very many people. And that was something that I just enjoyed doing on my own and kind of for myself.
Right.
But a couple years ago, a friend of mine who I was working with at the time, who had been in recording and production for 10 plus years, just kind of casually asked me, like, do you write songs? And I was like, I think I lied to him, and I was like, no.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm pretty sure you do. He's like, let me see what you got. I think we should make an album. And I was like,
whoa,
not really, I don't know, interested in being that singer-songwriter artist person.
Right.
Because I knew that, like, I loved leading worship, and that's what I wanted to do. And so it wasn't ever something that was like, I wanted to just pursue hardcore and become this, artist person. It just naturally flowed out of me pursuing what God had put before me, I guess. So,
that's a unique combination, though. It really is, because you don't see too many people that have had, I'll use the word success, but that's probably not the best word, as a worship leader and as a singer-songwriter, especially an artist that's recorded, that has done recordings. So, now, do you use your original songs when you lead worship, partly or sometimes?
Yeah, sometimes. I still feel a little bit awkward with that, just because I don't want it to be about me.
Right.
So there's some times where it's fitting to use some of my songs, but I'm hoping to write more songs for the church is really something that I have a heart for. And I have a couple songs that are kind of that way, but most of what comes out of me as I write are kind of more the singer-songwriter artist type songs. Yeah. Which I find interesting, because I'm like, man, I really want to write songs, for the congregation to worship to. And I think that'll kind of come out as well as I just continue to write, and as I don't know, just seek the Lord and how that's supposed to look in the future. And so there's one song that I did write for a National Youth Convention as a worship song intentionally. Okay. And that one's been filtering through multiple congregations, which is kind of cool.
That is cool. Yeah. So. Now, do you lead, let's say, the church that you're at? Large, small? How much of a praise team? How big is a praise team? Was it just you, or?
Yeah. So I'm a part of a larger congregation that has a satellite campus. Okay. So the main campus is about 4,000 congregants, but then the satellite campus that I primarily lead at is about 400 congregants with a full band every week.
Full band. Okay. All right. Awesome. That's fun, isn't it?
It is really fun. Yeah.
I did that for so many years. I've been a Christian since I was just a kid, but did secular bands all through my whole life until the mid-'90s, and then got into recording and writing and performing the Christian music. And at that point, I kind of just completely gave up the secular bands and music and things. But a few Christian friends and I would still get together and just play. And it's just, although when I go out as an artist, I'm primarily a solo artist, but there are times when I get to perform. I shouldn't say that word, perform. That's the artist and me coming out. Minister, I'd say that, with a group, and it's awesome. Yeah. Yeah,
so, it is definitely fun when you have like-minded people and you're there for the same reason. It's just a blast.
Right. Well, let's take a quick break, Katy, and we will come back and let's get to one of the three songs that we're going to feature through our time together here. And you can think about which one that's going to be first. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the NoteSpire Radio Artist Insight. We'll be back with more in just a moment. Welcome back to another Artist Insight on WNSMDB, NoteSpire Radio.
And we're back on the NoteSpire Radio Artist Insight, talking to Katy Dahl, and some great stuff here so far, and I know it's gonna just get better. Katy, let's feature one of your songs from the CD Faithful. We had talked about doing 3 of them, and which one would you like to start with?
How about Watching Over Me?
Okay. All right. Talk about that song.
Yeah, this song is the first one on the album. It's the first track. It's a little bit more upbeat and kind of just a positive message of how God is constantly watching over the details of our lives. I remember, I think when I was writing this, I was just searching for a place to live. I needed housing within like a month, and I was just like not really sure what was going to happen. Yeah. And, just through mutual friends and through a few phone calls and a quick visit to somebody's house, like God had just like aligned the right place at the right time. And I just was just so grateful that God is faithful to lead me even in the little things, like He's in the details. And so I just sat down and this song just came out that he's watching over me through everything. And so the verses just kind of describe every situation, and then the chorus is just a reminder that he's watching over me.
That he's watching over us all, yeah. All right, Katy, let's do this song here. Play this for our listeners. I know you're going to be blessed by Katy Dahl. Here she is with Watching Over Me, here on the NoteSpire Music Artist Insight. Watching over me. Oh, yeah. The word says that in so many different ways to us, doesn't it, Katy? That God is always watching over us. Even if you go back to hymns like what's the his eye is on the sparrow. That's what I'm trying to think of. Yes, beautiful old hymn, and you said it so well in that song. Katy, what's the history behind the first CD that you did? I think you said that you'd done that closer to home, and then the second one was you got a story about how that really just God put that all together going to Nashville. But talk about that first one. How did that come about?
Yeah, so the friend of mine, Brian Rickey, who is a recording engineer and does some producing, he was the one that asked me, if I'd do any songwriting. Yeah. And he had a studio in his basement. He's like, let's do an album. And so he helped me and led me through the process of making that first album. And it was an awesome time of just collaborating with local musicians here in the cities. Yeah. Old connections that he had that came in and we recorded and mixed everything right there in his studio, right in local Minneapolis. And so that was just like a really fun experience to start with, and just get understanding of how the whole process works, because there's a lot more to it than just stepping into a studio with your guitar.
Yeah, and just singing a song and then going home. No, it's
exactly
right. A lot more than that. So did you do all the guitar and all the vocals, or did you have other people?
I'm pretty sure I did most of the guitar. I had another friend step in for some of the songs.
Yeah.
And then pretty sure all of it was recorded mostly live.
Yeah.
And then I did all of the vocals, and then had some friends sing some background vocals on it too.
Nice. So, yeah. And how long ago was that?
I released that album in the spring of 2017.
Okay.
And that album is entitled Home. So that was my first project.
Is that one out out there in cyberspace for everybody?
It is out in the world, everywhere.
And we'll talk about that in just a little bit, about how to get a hold of you and your music. But let's go to another song. Which one could we do next? We have Wandering Soul and Faithfulness. Which I'll let you pick.
Sure. Let's talk about Wandering Soul.
Okay, Wandering Soul.
So this is the second song on the Faithful project, and this song just kind of came out of a place of restlessness. I get restless often for maybe what is next, or maybe the things that I don't see. Yeah. And so it just kind of came out of this like angst of like what else is out there, like what else is ahead. Yeah. But also within that like longing, there's just kind of that desire for home. We all long to be in our eternal home, and we're always going to feel restless here on this earth. Yeah, and so true. Kind of this theme of being a wandering soul throughout life ties back to a verse in Scripture where it says that we're wanderers here on this earth, longing for our eternal home. I think that's in Hebrews 11. Yeah, just kind of this always in waiting expectation for what's ahead. Yeah. So that was kind of just where that song came from, and kind of the message behind it.
That restlessness you talked about, do you find that sometimes maybe is God trying to get your attention, maybe get you going in a certain direction or change your direction? Or
I think sometimes. I think like overall the bigger picture of it is just to not get comfortable here on this earth, and to know that to hold loosely, I think, the things of this earth, and knowing that this isn't it. Like we're not here forever. This is just a blink of an eye. But to keep your eyes focused on the eternal perspective of our existence, which is going to be home in heaven, with the Lord.
Right. That's a good perspective, and I think there's somebody listening probably that needs to hear that right now, feeling that restlessness. But what I'm sensing is to just add to that it's okay. If you feel restless, okay, it's all right. It's all right. Keep on. We got to keep on keeping on, but don't get too comfortable. And home is coming. Home is coming.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like a healthy tension that we have to live in, right? Because we have to function.
We do,
and it's okay to not feel like this is where we belong, because it's not. But also to know that we're put here for a purpose, and we have a mission right here and right now.
That's very good. Yeah.
So it's kind of holding both of those in a healthy balance.
Healthy balance, yeah. I am looking forward to hearing this song, and I'm sure you folks are too. Here's Katy Dahl with her song "Wandering Soul" here on the NoteSpire Radio Artist Insight.
Tell me just what you think. Tell me just what you know. Tell me what's in your heart, 'cause I am a wandering soul. I am a wandering soul. Feels like I'm in a cage. Feels like I'm all chained up. All of these expectations I'm never living up. Questions are all I get, but answers something real, but learning to let you lead. Oh, 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 oh. I am a wandering soul. Oh, 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 oh. I am a wandering soul. Over time I've come to realize my restless heart is never giving up. And where you guide, I'll rest my head tonight. 'Cause this is not where I will be for long. Oh, 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 oh. I am a wandering soul. Oh, 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 oh. I am a wandering soul, fighting for something real. All of these expectations, not gonna let define me. Learning to let you lead. Oh, 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 oh. I am a wandering soul.
I love how you put that together, Katy. That's an awesome message, and you did such a good job of arranging it and bringing it out in the music. Wandering
Thank
Soul, yeah. And that's still resonating with me, because I'll tell you why. Because people know I was adopted, and just as I was like a year and a half old, and that's been a theme for me all of my life, of wanting to be home. And even there's times in my life I felt very home, and yet there's always been that something that is longing. And a pastor, I was talking to him one time, and he said, Paul, he says, I think because of what you've been through, and I'll say it, and other people that maybe have been adopted as well, there's a special longing for home. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that through your song. Let's talk about that second CD. And you told me earlier before we started recording that the pieces just kind of, you didn't put it this way, I'll put it this way, the pieces really fell into place for you to head to Nashville and do your second CD, of course, which the songs that we're hearing. Share a little bit about that, if you would.
Yeah. So in 2018, I started writing then for my next project. Well, I think it was actually the fall of 2017. And so I had a slew of songs that I was ready to start recording again, and I started recording with my friend Brian Rickey again. And we hit a point in production where I just kind of felt stuck as a self-producer, and I didn't really know what direction to go next with the project.
Okay.
And so we were kind of at that point in the recording process. And one day, randomly, down the street from the small town that I live in, Buffalo, I saw a poster that Chris August, the singer-songwriter, Christian artist, was going to be in town. And so I just thought, maybe that'd be fun to go check out. And so I just kind of felt this prompting that I needed to go and just pick his brain a little bit and see if he had any advice as an artist. And so after the show or whatever, I went up to him and just introduced myself and mentioned that, it'd be great to get any advice as an artist from him. So anyway, fast forward a couple of days, he texted me back, and he asked if I was going to be coming to Nashville anytime soon, because he wanted to meet me and talk through some of my goals and what I wanted to do.
Cool.
So I ended up going down there for a wedding a couple weeks later and met up with him. And basically within the first hour of meeting him, he's like, when can you get back on a plane down here to do a project? Wow. He's like, I really want to produce a project with you.
Wow.
And so it was just really cool, because I wasn't expecting that at all.
No, wow.
Nor, seeking that out. So I showed him some of the songs I was working on and asked if he would produce them. And so a couple months later, I was down in Nashville for 4 days, and we produced the project and then co-wrote the final song on the project.
Oh, that is so cool. We've got some listeners out there that are going,
Yeah, just hang in there and keep being faithful with what he's giving you, and he'll give you doors.
That's right. And maybe I'm going to make a note that we need to talk about that a little bit later before we get done. Is being true to what God has called you to do, and don't compare yourself or whatever to what somebody else has done. But we'll come back to that. Oh, Katy, we're going to take a quick break here, and we will be right back, and we're going to share the final song together here today, which will be Faithful, right? Faithfulness.
Yeah, Faithfulness. Yep.
All right, we will be right back with the NoteSpire Radio Artist Insight.
You're listening to another Artist Insight on WNSMDB NoteSpire Radio.
Well, I'll tell you, we're having a great time here with Katy Dahl from the Minneapolis, Minnesota area. I didn't say Sonota that time. Minnesota area. I almost did. It was hard not to. But we've been sharing her music, and Katy is a singer, songwriter, and worship leader. And she's got a couple of CD projects out, which we are being blessed by some of the music from. And Katy, before we get to the last, before our last song here, I'm curious to hear a little bit more, and I'm thinking probably our listeners are too. Tell us a little bit more of the details about your time in Nashville when doing this song, or this CD project, I should say.
Yeah, I guess it was a really great learning experience to see how a different way of doing production looks, and just making the connection with Chris and kind of seeing how he operates from his studio, and it was just really fun to be able to collaborate with such a creative guy and somebody who's been doing this for quite a while now. And so it was just a really fun opportunity, that's for sure.
I'll bet it was. What was the of course you had done the first CD in your local area. Mm-hmm. Was this was the studio you were in? Was it right in Nashville, or was it kind of outside, or what? What's the question I want to ask here? Not sure. Sometimes I edit these things out when I stumble like this, but I'm going to go right. I'm going to go right ahead. Let's ask a different question. What was the biggest thing that you took away from that?
Oh man,
yeah.
I think that there is definitely power in collaboration.
Yeah, there you go.
And it's really fun to just see what other people come up with, especially in the production process.
Yeah.
Where there can be counter melodies or maybe a background instrument that's flowing something else that you never thought of, and that another brain can bring so much to the table. Even with like songwriting, this was the first time I had co-written with anybody, and that was a little bit different at first, but just the lyric choices that he came up with rather than what I would have chosen were really cool to bounce off each other.
There we go. I didn't know how to ask the question, but you just answered it very, very well. Collaboration, the importance of that, and we've talked about that on other podcasts with other people, and how God uses other people, and as we collaborate and work together with other people, He uses that to do several things. Number one, and to expand our territory, expand our horizons, and also to help us learn and grow. Because you might, somebody else may sew something else into your song, or your lyrics, or the production. And it's not just a one-time thing, I don't think. I think you take that and we store that away, and as we're doing future projects, future songs, writing, somehow that what we've gotten from other people comes back, and it helps us. It helps us down the road. So that's very important.
Definitely.
Yeah. So this song, Faithfulness. Yeah, I just love that. I mean, one of my favorite hymns is Great Is Thy Faithfulness, and I forget who it was that wrote that song, He's Always Been Faithful. Have you heard that one?
Yeah, so good.
I recorded that on one of my projects, He's Always Been Faithful, and was it Sarah Groves? No, I forget who that was.
I can't remember either.
Okay,
yeah. It's out my head.
He's never failed me yet. And so talk a little bit about this. I think you've got some great things to say about this song.
Yeah, I just think that the promise of God's faithfulness to us is probably one of my favorite promises, because it's so all-encompassing. just looking back on my journey a little bit, I was serving at another congregation for 6 years prior to the congregation I'm currently at, and just seeing how God called me to remain faithful in where He's placed me, and that the way that I can remain faithful is by reminding myself that God is faithful to me. And so even in my restlessness or even in my frustrations at times, knowing that God's been way more faithful to me than I have been to Him. Yeah, right. And so therefore I can keep moving forward.
For all of us, that's true.
Yeah. And so in this song, it just kind of is a reminder to me, to sing back to me that even when I get frustrated or tired or weary, that God is still faithful, and that His kindness, it reminds me of His love and His faithfulness. And He's so gently and patiently leading us along, even when I act like a child sometimes. Right. He's still there.
Take off in our own direction.
Exactly. Yeah. And it just points back to His covenant that He made with Himself, and He can't deny Himself.
Yes.
And so therefore He can't ever go back on that promise.
Right.
So knowing that that's something that is true and unchanging and never failing is something for me to place my hope in every day.
Amen. So. Amen. We'll talk a little bit more about that, the whole faithfulness thing, I think, right now. I think we're going to be prompted to do that by listening to the song. So here we go with, listen to the words here, my friends. Faithfulness from Katy Dahl right here.
You know what I need, you know when I breathe, you know my heart and you still love me. You know every thought, every right and wrong, you know my sin but you still love me. You love me even when I am unlovable at best. You love me even when I run away and make a mess. Your kindness, it reminds me of your faithfulness. You revive my hope, you pursue my heart. You have loved me like no one can. You bring joy in life, you have taught me love. You bring hope to a hopeless land. You love me even when I am unlovable at best. You love me even when I run away and make a mess. Your kindness, it reminds me of your faithfulness. You never failed before, and now your covenant still stands. I know you're coming back, and you'll be faithful to the end. 'Cause you love me even when I am unlovable at best. Yeah, you love me even when I run away and make a mess. Yeah, you love me even when I am unlovable at best. Yeah, you love me even when I run away and make a mess. Your kindness, it reminds me of your faithfulness.
What a great message for all of us, Katy, that God is faithful even when we are not. I'm going to add in here, and maybe you can add your own spin on it, that when we are facing something that is very challenging, a trial, a tribulation, whether it's financial, whether it's relational, whether it's health-wise or whatever, and we say, God, where are you in this? Or what are you going to do? And we just fall to our knees or to our face and we're sinking in the pit. But if we look back, we know that He has always been faithful. and he's not going. And I'm my hand's going up. I'm talking for myself here that the times I have faced that, God's reminded me, well, I didn't fail you back then when you went through that, or when you went through that. Or remember when you went through that, you made it through that with my grace, and you're going to make it through this too. So you want to add to that if you could?
Yeah, it just reminds me of the song lyrics of a Hillsong song that says, "You've never failed before, and you won't start now."
Yeah.
And that reminder of he can't go back on his promise, and he won't. And he doesn't just because he can't, but he chooses not to. And so out of his love for us, he chooses to remain faithful and patient. And in those times where you're just feeling kind of hopeless, where it's like, what's going on here? Reminding yourselves of the promises that God's given, even if you don't feel it, knowing that it's true is what carries me through in those times where maybe my feelings are an emotional mess. God doesn't change, and his promises to us always stay the same.
Yeah. So, friends, if you're going through something right now, we want to encourage you, remind you and encourage you that God's faithfulness will never fail. And he is with you, and he's going to get you through whatever that might be. I think we're going to take a quick pause here and then come back and talk about some things that maybe, Katy, you have faced in your musical experience, and maybe give some tips and a little advice, or at least some encouragement to others who might be facing some things as well. We'll talk more about that in just a minute. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back with more of the NoteSpire Radio Artist Insight right after this.
And we're back with the NoteSpire Radio Artist Insight, talking with Katy Dahl from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and been enjoying and being blessed by some of her music from her latest CD, which is called Faithful. Katy, I'm sure that like so many others, you have faced some struggles, some issues, and being a worship leader and an artist, that may bring its own set of struggles that somebody who is one or the other may not face. Does that bring anything to mind that our listeners might be encouraged by?
Yeah, I think sometimes as a worship leader or a leader in general, it's hard to know sometimes where you can go to share some of your struggles, I think, with other people.
Yeah, that's true.
Because you're constantly the one bearing other people's burdens.
Yeah.
And some of these songs on this project just came from, the pain, or maybe the bearing that of other people's, and then just also that cry out from my own heart.
Yeah.
And so I just have found that just pouring your heart out to the Lord in those times of difficulty, because he's the one that understands rather than always the people around us. But the importance also of having a voice that you can go to and a trusted person is so important too. Absolutely.
Right. Do you? No, we did talk about your songs and whether you are able to use some of your own songs in the church setting as you're leading worship. But do you find it hard to separate the two, or do you need to separate the two? How do the Katy as a singer-songwriter and Katy as a worship leader, do they blend together fairly easy, or do you find you have to kind of wear one hat or the other?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I'm still trying to figure that out.
Okay.
It seems a little bit like they're separate, and I think that's maybe because I haven't quite figured out how they mesh together.
Okay, yeah.
Whereas, if I say that to somebody where I'm like, they just feel like separate things, I've had people look at me and like, how? How does that seem separate to you?
Yeah.
But for me, I guess when I'm like playing my songs in front of a group and I'm, asked to kind of come and perform, that feels a little bit different than coming in and just leading them in worship.
Right.
But at the same time, my goal is to always point people to the hope that we have in Christ Jesus, whether I'm singing a song over them or whether we're proclaiming a song together. So I think it's something that I'm still going to wrestle with a little bit, but hopefully will feel a little bit more natural as time goes on to just kind of step into those together rather than view them separately.
Right. I've talked to my partner, Nate Miller, is my partner in NoteSpire Music. He's a worship leader, and that's pretty much all he does. He's a singer, he's a songwriter too, but he doesn't go out and perform, so he doesn't have to, I'll say, deal with that contrast, if you will. Where I'm mostly a singer-songwriter, and I'll say performer, and I know we know how we're using that word. We're not trying to put the spotlight on us, but rather on God. But it is different, isn't it? When you're leading people, you're not performing for them. They're not watching you. You want to bring them with the songs that you're singing and leading. You want to bring them closer to the Lord. And again, that goal is present in both scenarios, but there still is a difference. And I think that maybe somebody listening might be nodding their head and saying, "Yeah, there is." And I'm going to say this to our listeners right now, friends. If you're listening to this and you have a way to whether it's on our website or whatever, if you have some thoughts on that, please share them with us, whether it's on Facebook or whatever. We'd like to hear your thoughts on whether especially if you're both a singer or songwriter and a worshiper. If you do both, let us know your thoughts on that. Katy, we talked about collaboration, and I want to just expand on that just a little bit. Have you? And you experienced that in Nashville. Have you had chances to do that since then? And what would you like to say to our listeners about collaborating as opposed to just kind of going it on your own?
Yeah, I think there's always value to adding other perspectives. Everybody has a different perspective on things, whether it bases off of their upbringing, what they listen to, maybe just their surroundings. They have a whole different perspective than I do on life and just things. And so when you can bring multiple perspectives to the table, it just adds so much. And musicianship too, like I don't play every instrument, wish I did, but like other people that play other instruments can bring in different tones to the song or to the table, maybe when you're songwriting. Yeah. And my goal is to do more songwriting and to kind of grow my expanse right here in the cities of just how to collaborate with other people. My collaborative juices haven't necessarily been flowing lately, just with work and things like that. But my goal is to eventually get to the point where that's not as difficult to step into, but it's just a natural thing to get together with people and create together.
Right. When you lead worship, when you're leading the worship, do you take the songs when you pick songs? First of all, are you the one that picks the songs for each week? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep. And when you do that, do you pretty much stay true to the original whatever arrangement of the songs, or do you take a little liberty and just kind of arrange them differently once in a while?
Yeah, I think it depends on the song and the setting. I think we do a little bit of both, based on what works for that week and that service. But I think there's value to both. You know, if we just continue to do maybe what's recorded or stay to one format, right? That gets to be a little bit old, and the musicians maybe start to clock out. Yeah, and so keeping it somewhat in a way that, hey, let's arrange this together, or how can we get it from this feel to that feel, is a part of that creative process. Right. I think that all musicians need a little bit of, so that they don't become stagnant. That's right. Behind their instrument. Yeah, that's very true. One more topic here we'll cover here in our last few minutes together, and I want to ask you just what is whether it's as a worship leader or as the singer-songwriter, and I don't mean to really separate the two, because that's who you, so I'm asking you, who, as you know, in all that you are in your musical abilities and things, what's the biggest struggle that you think you've faced over the years, and how do you deal with that, and maybe to me an encouragement to somebody else that might be struggling with the same thing? That's a good question. I think especially as an artist, there's definite points of highs, in being an artist.
Yeah.
I think some people think that there's just a constant, you're living on this mountaintop. But there's these, where you do maybe a show, or maybe you, have a song or an album release, or an event coming up that you're, excited when it happens. But there's plenty of time in the in-betweens of those highs. There's definitely more time on the in-between rather than on that mountaintop. Yeah. And so I think I'm learning and working on what do I do in that time, and not to wish it away, but to utilize that as maybe a time to write or express emotions or feelings that maybe other people are experiencing as well. And putting words around maybe some of those lower moments rather than just living for those highs, especially as an artist where we're kind of always looking towards the next thing. Like, I feel like my brain is always planning the next thing. Yeah. Or like, what do I need to be prepping for? But what do I do with the in-between? Knowing that my identity doesn't come from those highs or from just those big moments, but it comes from who I am in Christ, and resting in that identity rather than in maybe the public perspective of who I am.
That's important, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Because that doesn't, the highs don't last.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I guess we can tie that back into God's faithfulness to us. His faithfulness will last, and He will keep on using us and our gifts as long as we are faithful to Him. But if if our identity is in those high moments, and we so easily, and I guess my hand's going up on it too, that once we hit those low times or the in between times, as you said, then we can almost wonder, well, who are we? I was this great artist, this great person that people loved when the CD came out, or that last concert that I did, or I led worship for thousands and thousands of people, but then after that is over and the lights are turned off and the amps are turned down, and then down now so easy to say now what.
Yeah, definitely. It can be kind of these extreme emotions, and to not let that define you or to be what, you're kind of living for. Right. But instead knowing that you rest securely, as a child of God first and foremost. Yeah. And those are just exciting moments that happen along the way, and it's just part of the journey. Right. Yeah. But God is consistent through it all.
Yeah. And He calls us to be too. One final thing I'll touch on here, and a lot of other artists I'm going to touch on this because a lot of other artists struggle with it as well, and I want to get your take on it. And that is, most of us, especially as Christian artists, many of us, we don't like to promote ourselves. Self-promotion is a real tough one. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think, that's something that's easy to get hung up on, for sure, and myself included. I struggle with that, knowing what the healthy balance of that is. But when I look at what I'm called to do, and I know that God's gifted me in this area of making music and getting it out to the world, what my goal is to proclaim the gospel of Christ Jesus, that we have hope. And so if I put my focus on that's the message that I want to get out, not my name, not who I am, because I'm nobody special, I'm just a human. Right. But I'm called by God to do this, so therefore it's utilizing my gifting, not pointing others to who I am. So it's just stepping into the gifting that God's given to me and proclaiming the gospel, which is what we're made to do. And when I can try to remove myself from the equation, it's a lot easier. But I definitely struggle with that as well, because I get in the way a lot.
Right, me too. Yeah, you've put it in a very unique way that nobody else has put before. You're not out there to proclaim how great your song or your CD project is, or how great you are, but how great He is. Absolutely, and that hope. So, to our listeners, you might want to write that down, because Katy said it very well, very well. And so let's talk just as we wrap up here, Katy. How can people find you online and get the music and things? Let's give all that information.
Yeah, you can find my music on most of the social platforms, Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, those kinds of things. YouTube, and then I've got a website at katydahl.com where you can find a store page and a little more info and a contact page there as well.
Right. Want to spell that for us?
Yeah, katydahl.com.
There we go. Okay. And we are going to put a link. Now, friends, you're hearing this. You may be hearing this from clicking on our website at NoteSpireRadio.com, or you may be hearing it on Spreaker or wherever, but we're going to, of course, Katy, we're going to put a link to your website and all this information on there as well. Now, friends, if you're hearing this on NoteSpire Radio and you're not able to hear the whole thing, or you'd like to hear it again, we do broadcast this interview and each interview twice a week when it first comes out on Sunday night and again on Wednesday morning. But after that, friends, you can hear it. It will be on Spreaker. And you can go to NoteSpireRadio.com, and there's a link for our Spreaker page there, and you can go there, and we will leave this interview on Spreaker for a number of weeks, so you can download it, stream it, whatever. So it will be available there in case you miss it on the radio or you want to hear it again. Well, Katy, it's been a real pleasure talking to you today. We appreciate your time and the way you're using your gifts for the Lord. Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's awesome.
It's a pleasure, and want to wish you the best and pray the best for you and your ministry wherever God takes you. And
Thank you so much.
I'm sure we'll bring you on again in a while down the road, and we'll talk again.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay,
well, thank you so much, Paul.
God bless. Bye-bye.
You too.